Hello, my name is Jared Ludlow, the Publications Director at BYU Religious Studies Center, your weekly resource for gospel scholarship. And today we'll talk about some resources that go along with your Come Follow Me reading for the first week of August on the book of Job. The first one is called Hast Thou Considered My Servant Job? It's by John Tanner, former academic vice president here at BYU and the president of BYU Hawaii, and it comes from a Sperry Symposium presentation. And in this article, he brings his literary expertise to bear on this important text and talks about how the book of Job frames discussions of certain fundamental and permanent questions with which every generation of believers must grapple. And a lot of that has to do with justice, suffering, and particularly what he tries to focus on is man's relationship to God out of the midst of evil. And so discussing the personal problem of despair and the need, particularly for revelation. And so that's what he emphasizes a lot in this article is the need for revelation that can come when going through these types of experiences. He also addresses the question that comes up often with the book of Job, is it history or story? And he kind of takes a middle position or compromise position where he does think that it's a real person, but obviously this story has gone through literary hands and has been crafted and framed in a certain way. Like a lot of ancient wisdom literature, it has a certain didactic or teaching purpose in it. The second article is called Withstanding the Evil One by P. Scott Ferguson, a religion professor at BYU Idaho, and it comes from a religious educator article. And he starts his article with something that he does with his classes often by asking the students whether the following statement is true or false. God will not allow Satan to tempt us with evil influences that are beyond our ability to resist. So he asks the students if they think that's true or false. And then he goes through and discusses how there's a difference between God's testing and Satan's tempting. One is to refine us, the other is to entice us. And there is certainly a battle for loyalty as we go through our mortal experience. And so he ends discussing how important prayer is as essential for overcoming temptation. And the third article is called Earthquakes, Wars, Holocausts, Disease, and Humanities. Why Doesn't God Intervene? And it's by Craig Osler, a church history professor at BYU. And it comes from a volume called Window of Faith, Latter-day Saint Perspectives on World History. And so in this book chapter, he talks about how God has certain designs for mortals here on earth, and also discusses a lot about the purpose of refining and testing while we're going through mortality. He also discusses God's view of poverty, of suffering, of death. He discusses God's justice and times when he does intervene. And so as part of all this discussion, he brings up the example of Job as an example of trusting God and in the midst of this suffering still holding on to that trust in God.